I had already made the decision while sitting in traffic. It was a quiet agreement with myself, sealed while I fastened my son's collar at a red light and smoothed my daughter's hair with my hand. We wouldn't stay long. We would show up, say hello, hand over the gift, sing if it came to that, and leave before the mood shifted. I had learned how to sense that change in a room, the moment celebration turns into performance, when warmth starts to feel conditional if you linger too long. The restaurant had large windows that made everything feel exposed. White tablecloths stretched across the room, glasses of champagne catching the afternoon light. My mother loved places like this, where the staff greeted her by name, where birthdays were announced with cheerful enthusiasm that sounded practiced. I hesitated at the entrance, my kids close beside me, suddenly aware of how carefully dressed we were. Nothing flashy. Just neat. Respectful. Sunday best in the old-fashioned sense, clean, thoughtful, intentional. My sister noticed us first. Her smile faltered for a split second before she fixed it. She gave a small wave. Someone at the table laughed a little too loudly. Chairs shifted. Then my father stood up. He didn't raise his voice. That was what caught me off guard. Even now, when I replay it, I remember how he stepped just far enough into my path that the servers had to adjust their trays. "You shouldn't have come," he said. "Not we weren't expecting you. Not can we talk later." Just that. A sentence delivered with authority, finality, and witnesses. For a brief moment, everything in me prepared to negotiate. Years of conditioning kicked in. I could have smoothed it over, made a joke, apologized for existing in the wrong way. I could have taught my children, right there, how to shrink themselves to keep others comfortable. Instead, something settled inside me. Not anger. Not shock. Clarity. I nodded once. I turned. I placed my hand gently on my son's back and guided him away. My daughter followed without speaking. We walked back through the glass doors. I didn't look behind us. I didn't need to. In the car, my daughter asked if Grandma was mad. "No," I said after a moment. "Sometimes adults don't handle things very well." It was true enough to stand on. The drive home was quiet, not heavy yet, just careful. I kept my voice steady when they asked about cake. I promised pancakes later. I focused on the familiar turns, on how leaving felt far less dramatic than staying would have been. At home, I hung the clothes back in the closet. The gift bag stayed by the door. I made coffee and sat at the kitchen table. That's when the memories arrived, uninvited, the way they do when something finally breaks a pattern. I thought about how I'd taken over the family account years earlier, when my parents began missing payments. How it had been framed as temporary and practical. Responsible. How I'd added my name because the bank required it. How my sister joked that I was the boring one who liked spreadsheets. How my father liked to remind people that the money was still his, even when he wasn't tracking it. I never thought of it as power. I thought of it as containment. Damage control. One less thing to worry about. The phone rang about an hour later. I let it ring twice before answering. "What did you do?" my sister demanded. No greeting. Her voice was sharp with adrenaline. "Why did you lock the account?" "Mom's crying. It's her birthday." I closed my eyes. "I didn't lock it," I said. "I restricted access." "That's the same thing. Dad can't pay the bill. The card was declined." "I know." There was a pause, then disbelief. "You're punishing them because of what Dad said." "I'm not punishing anyone." "Then fix it." I thought of the restaurant. The sentence delivered cleanly. The expectation that I would absorb it quietly, like always. "No," I said. She laughed once, incredulous. "You can't just." "I can," I said calmly. "And I have." She started talking faster then, about embarrassment, about how Mom didn't understand, about how this would spiral into something bigger. About family. I let her speak until she ran out of breath. "I didn't withdraw any money," I said when there was finally space. "I didn't move anything. I set a requirement that any disbursement needs my approval. That's been recommended before." "By who?" "The bank." She swore. I could hear voices in the background. My mother's thin and strained, my father's low and angry. "This is cruel. my sister said finally. I considered the word. What was said to me was public, I said, and intentional. That doesn't mean. It does, I said gently. It means I won't finance my own exclusion. She hung up. 10 minutes later, my phone rang again. An unfamiliar number. The bank officer's voice was steady and professional. She referenced dates, notes, prior warnings about unusual spending patterns. She confirmed that, given my documented role and previous concerns, the temporary restriction was appropriate. She asked if I wanted to schedule a review. Yes, I said. Please. When I hung up, the house was quiet. The kids were building something in the living room, arguing softly over instructions. Normal sounds. Safe sounds. My father didn't call that day, or the next. My mother sent a brief text about misunderstandings, hurt feelings, and how birthdays can make emotions run high. I replied that we could talk another time. We haven't yet. What I feel isn't satisfaction. It isn't victory. There's grief in it, a dull ache for the version of family that required me to keep proving my value through usefulness. There's guilt too, when I picture my mother crying, even secondhand. But there's also something steadier now. I no longer rush to smooth over moments that cut. I no longer confuse access with affection. The account remains restricted. Bills are paid after conversations, not before. Boundaries exist where assumptions once lived. My kids don't know the details. They just know we didn't stay where we weren't wanted. They know pancakes still happened. They know the world didn't end. Sometimes dignity looks like walking away without a speech. Sometimes it looks like closing a ledger and letting silence explain what words no longer can. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cause a scene. I simply stopped paying the price of admission.